So, I was driving one day, in my hybrid, while listening to a favorite radio show of mine, Talk of the Nation. The subject that day was alternative energy, specifically, alternatives to gasoline.
This is Talk of the Nation Science Friday. I'm Ira Flato. Picture an Olympic-sized swimming pool filled with oil. Now, drain one of those pools every 15 seconds, and that's the world's current oil consumption. This hour, we'll talk about energy independence. Is it attainable? What are some of the alternatives?
They spoke at length about all of the alternatives, the typical ones, ethanol, biofuels, hydrogen. And then, about 40 minutes into the show, Peter Tertsakian, an energy economist and author of 1,000 Barrels a Second, he made a point, a metaphor, that stuck with me to this very day.
The issue is in transportation.
Cars, buses, trucks, things like that.
Cars, SUVs, trucks, that is where the issue is. And, you know, when we talk about this addiction that President Bush talks about, I mean, it's actually in my book. Like, what are we trying to do here? We're telling somebody, say, for example, who's an alcoholic and he's addicted to vodka, and metaphorically, when you talk about ethanol, we're saying, okay, let's switch this guy over to vodka or to bourbon, right? Mm-hmm. Well, you know, the issue is that you're addicted. Maybe you ought to try to think about easing off the bottle rather than just switching the fuels around.
So I thought that everyone buying a hybrid or a car running on ethanol was the solution. Buy a hybrid, help save the world, feel good. Sound familiar? It does for me. That's why I bought a hybrid. But merely buying that kind of car may not solve the underlying problem of our addiction to personal mobility. We're alcoholics, switching out our drink of preference. It's as if we're driving drunk.
Now let's see what would happen when driving under the influence of alcohol. This time, let's imagine you're fully under the influence. Reflexes are slow, judgment poor, and you're too late and too slow.
You can think of this as us and global warming.
Your confidence was high, but your reactions and judgment were low.
But wait a minute. Are cars really even a problem? Imagine the world in 2050, with a projected population of over 9 billion people. If every family in China, India, Brazil, Mexico, and every other developed country drives a car, then this could be a pretty large problem for numerous reasons, the most pressing being environmental reasons. The good news is that other countries have more alternative transit options and are promoting them. But here in the States, alternatives are limited. Walking and biking is doable, if not slightly dangerous. Bus service exists in most cities in the country, but what about rail? Trains not just within cities and municipalities, but regional trains connecting those cities. We're completely behind. And trains are the most difficult to implement because of their cost, and yet they can also have a massive payoff. So today, is public transportation even a priority? What do politicians think? While Senator McCain does not have a transportation policy outlined on his website, Senator Clinton does, and Senator Obama does too. He supports funding Amtrak, developing high-speed passenger and freight rail, investing in public transportation planning, and creating better incentives for public transit usage. But what about the voters? Us common folks. What do we want to see in our public transportation system? To find this out, we interviewed professors, executives, commuters, pedestrians, out-of-towners, and residents in Nashville, Tennessee, Washington, D.C., and Greensboro, North Carolina. And if you don't like the sound of shopping carts, cover your ears.
I don't have no other choice. I mean, hey, bus would be super. I remember that when I was a kid. People used to travel by bus. Hey, if you can get people to ride a bus, hey, take cars off the road.
Would you consider getting here any other way besides driving today?
Not really. Nothing out that way.
Would you consider taking public transportation if it were more convenient for you?
If it's more convenient, maybe. I don't know. We'd have to see.
Yeah.
It's too easy to have your own transportation. Why go through the house and grab someone else?
If there was a light rail transportation, I think it would be better and more efficient and faster.
I think the problem is that it's endemic to everyone's mind that they have to have their own transportation. So
especially in this area.
They see
people are not accustomed.
Anywhere, except New York, maybe.
Well,
But if there were a public transportation option, you would definitely consider taking it.
Yeah, like a park and ride or something like that.
Cool.
Well, it depends, because you know how easy it is when you can drive yourself and get to where you're going and get where you want.
you got convenience. You get in your car, go to
Right,
you don't-
convenience, I guess that's
Yeah, you have
it.
to go to the train station or bus station or whatever.
But if fuel keeps going up and everything, we're going to have to look at a different avenue. But I'm kind of with her. I like to get where I'm going and get in, get out.
But I drive from Greensboro to Raleigh every day, and I wish there was a. I really wish there was a better transportation system.
Typically when I come into town, it's to do a bunch of running around, and I don't know how convenient that would be to have to catch a bus or whatever every time. So.
Right. Places in America have better public transportation.
Well, I think they just don't think it's cost effective in Oklahoma because our population's spread out more and the work areas are not centralized, so I think that's why we don't have it. But I still think it would be useful.
We don't really have much from where I'm from the area. We're just north of Pittsburgh, small town. I don't trust buses. They always go the wrong way.
Okay.
They're late a lot. The metro is nice though.
Particularly in cities where there is not public transportation available, how walking from one place to another, or the idea of walking from one place to another, seems, you think of it in terms of how long it would take you to travel via car, but so you're like, why would I walk when it would take me 2 minutes to get there? You're not going to have near the same experience if you just make that drive as opposed to just walking it. And so a lot of people just take advantage of the convenience of a car and being able to get somewhere quick and miss out on the human interaction and just being able to put things in perspective. I think that's one of the cool things about having the option to just jump on a metro or just get out and walk several blocks and not be dependent on a vehicle. Definitely gives you a different view that you would not have if you're limited to your own vehicles.
I guess more people would have to have experience of a good public transportation system to show what the benefits are.
Parking is a problem, starting to be where we're from, so public transportation is the way to go.
So why don't you think more places in America have better public transportation?
It costs a lot. There's a lot of maintenance that gets involved. I don't think cities would want to find it in their budget, make space in their budget for such a system like this. I think it goes along the same lines as New York City. You have a lot of people coming in and not everyone can drive, and so you have to have it. People want to have more independence rather than having to depend on someone else's time frame. That's a big issue. I know a lot of people like cars because it gives them, I can just get into my car and drive off.
What in the future, if you'd like to see this change with the way that the United States moves itself, what would need to happen for that?
We would have to build more infrastructure for rail transportation. We would have to subsidize rail. We would have to pay higher taxes in order to do so. We would need to come up with some of the rail innovations that are in Europe, like sleeper cars that don't cost $200 to $300 a night, because it has to compete with air transportation. It absolutely has to. If you're going to spend the time on a train, it has to be cheaper, it has to be more comfortable, it has to